Hi guys, I'm just another guy named James, and today I'm going to be talking about a JLA story, which JLA was the Justice League comic of the late to mid '90s. It followed the Justice League International, Justice League America storylines, and basically in this story, what you're really going to be seeing a lot of is you're going to be seeing a lot of new faces in the Justice League. Now there is some background to be noted about this story. This story is a direct follow-up to JLA New World Order, which I do have a video about on my channel. It's one of my older ones, but I'll still link it down in the description. But yeah, so it's a direct follow-up to that story. But there's definitely some stuff that's happened between New World Order and this story. The biggest one being that Superman no longer looks like Superman. He's now what we call Superman Blue, where basically he's not as strong. He doesn't have all his powers anymore, but now he has electrical powers. And I don't really know why that happens. It's just a thing that happened in the Superman comics. And again, I don't really know why. It was a Dan Jurgens creation near the end of his run with Superman, I believe. But I'm no Superman expert per se. But yeah, that blue and white guy with the electrical powers, that's Superman. Little funky, but it is what it is. Let's see. Oh, the Green Lantern of this story is Kyle Rayner Green Lantern. The Flash of this story is Wally West Flash. When Green Arrow shows up eventually, he's going to be Connor Hawke, who is the son of Oliver Queen's version of Green Arrow. Oliver Queen, who is dead at this time in comics history, by the way. So yeah, there's just some odds and ends background things that go into the kind of aren't really necessary to understand, to like piece together what's going on, but they'll just kind of help you, like they just kind of help to have in your back pocket of knowledge. But yeah, these all of these issues were written by Grant Morrison, and then the first 3 were drawn by Howard Potter and Richard Dell. And then the last 2 issues, I don't remember who drew them. Let's see. Don't know his first name. Hold, please. Alright. So, the second kind of big story in here, that this one was drawn by Oscar Jimenez. And what's interesting is Oscar Jimenez is totally a fill-in artist for Howard Potter. But honestly, I kind of like his artwork a little better than Potter's. Potter's isn't bad. Oh, Iron Man fell. Potter's isn't bad, but I do think that Jimenez's art is better. But let's see, I think that's all the kind of background information we're going to need for now, so I think we can just hop into our story, which opens with 2 Justice League enemies, Professor Ivo, creator of Amazo, and Professor T.O. Morrow, creator of Red Tornado, and they're toasting each other to their newest creation, which is a female robot of some sort. And we then jump to Superman, who is at Metamorpho's funeral before he flies off to the Batcave, where he helps Batman install a teleportation tube into the cave, which are going to be used to get from Earth to the Watchtower on the moon. Inside the Watchtower, we see that Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, and Superman are starting a recruitment drive to counter allegations of elitism against their new Justice League. So the interviews begin, and we see that there are only a couple of potential new members who really make the cut, and various leaguers have their friends come in. We see Flash brings a guy who doesn't even really want to be part of the league. It's just an interesting moment where they're like, that's kind of the writer showing, hey, we did think about we do have thoughts of expanding the league, and we also heard that they wanted that the league wanted to expand their base membership to 12 from the 7 that they're at currently. But the nominees begin, and like I said, some of them are good, some of them are bad. It's a mixed bag. But after everybody else is gone, we see a new hero drop in, who's called the Tomorrow Woman. But we see her and we immediately know, oh shoot, that's the same robot that Ivo and Moro made at the beginning of the story. We then jump ahead about a week, and we see that Tomorrow Woman has passed her initiation tests, and she is the newest member of the Justice League. We then see a handful of adventures that she goes on with the team until Moro and Ivo call her back and give her a new mission, which is to kill the Justice League using an EMP weapon that was built into her. We then jump ahead to the next day, where we see the League is fighting a giant force field AI thing called IF. But Batman discovers that it can only be defeated by an EMP blast, and Tomorrow Woman realizes she has an EMP built into her, but she also decides she doesn't want to kill the League. So she flies into IF and detonates the EMP, which takes down IF, but it also kills her. We then see the League go to arrest Ivo and Moro, and before this first issue ends with Superman at another funeral, this time for the Tomorrow Woman. We then hard cut to a mental hospital, where you see that a handful of nurses are tending to a comatose patient, and they're also watching some sort of fiery comet come crashing down to Earth. Now, as we zoom in on the comet, we see that it's definitely a person of some sort, and once he crashes into the water, we see that he appears to be an angel, and we see that more winged men are flying down to Earth. We then cut away and see that the demon Neuron has some sort of hand in the events that are about to transpire. We then cut to Superman and Flash, who are on the Watchtower setting up the trophy room, and Superman is telling Flash that he's kind of worried because everybody looks up to him so much and he can't live up to his own legend. And Flash is basically like, hey, you are the legend whether you live up to it or not. So, Flash is kind of making him feel better. But their conversation is interrupted by Green Lantern, who is letting Superman and Flash know that Martian Manhunter has called something in San Francisco. So Flash runs off to teleport down to Earth, but he is instead frozen in the teleporter. In San Francisco, Martian Manhunter finds the Angel at the bottom of the bay, but after the Angel wakes up, the sea is split and another group of angels touches down, because they're trying to get the first angel, whose name is Zuriel. But before we see what happens there, we cut to Wonder Woman and Aquaman, who are wrapping up another mission before they go off to help Martian Manhunter back in San Francisco. We see Green Lantern join the fray, but he isn't that effective against the Angels. So Aquaman and Wonder Woman jump in, and Wonder Woman just knocks an Angel straight away, and Aquaman dives in and carries another away. Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman then fly away with Zuriel to get some answers. We also see that there's something going down on the moon. And we cut back to Neuron, who we see is allowing his demons to try to pull the moon out of the sky. We then see Zuriel explain that he used to be a guardian angel, but he requested mortality. But an angel general named Asmodale is coming after him. And Asmodale is after him because Zuriel knows some sort of secret about him. The League also realizes Aquaman isn't with them anymore, so Zuriel runs off to find him. We then cut to Aquaman, who is running away from the angel he was fighting earlier, and just as Aquaman is forced to come crashing through a building to avoid death, Zuriel comes in and kills the angel Aquaman was fighting. Zuriel does this with like a hypersonic scream, not necessarily dissimilar to the one the Black Canary uses. But we also see that Zuriel can't really do that too often. Like it causes him a ton of pain. We then see back with the League that nothing can get out of San Francisco as a giant force field has come up around it. And Asmodale's chariot is arriving on Earth. So Green Lantern tries calling in Superman to help, But Superman has to do something because the moon is falling out of orbit and is crashing towards Earth. Next, we cut back down to Earth, where we see that Asmodale has touched down and is starting to come after Zuriel. But the League isn't letting that happen. We also see that Superman is cooking up something on the moon. Down in Hell, we see that the demons are starting to struggle to pull down the moon, and on the moon we see why. And it's because Superman has been making electromagnetic poles and is now using himself with his new lightning powers that I talked about earlier as a battery. So he basically turns the moon into a giant electromagnet that repels itself away from the Earth back into the right position. We also see that Flash is still able to think while he's trapped in the teleporter, so he's trying to figure out a way out. On Earth, we see that Martian Manhunter has started to fight Asmodale hand to hand, but it isn't going so well for him. So Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Zuriel go into the and go to break the shield generator on Asmodale's chariot, so that they can get some help. We then see a brief intermission back to the mental hospital where the comatose patient from earlier has woken up, and we see that he has some sort of hard beef with the Justice League. Back on the moon, we see Superman helping Flash vibrate his molecules to the right frequency and to unstick himself from the teleporter and phase back down to Earth. Superman also flies down to Earth, and on the ground we see Wonder Woman bust into the chariot and take out the shield generator. We also see Aquaman get Flash out of some rubble that had buried the teleportation tube he was in, and we cut to Martian Manhunter, who is really not faring very well in his fight. So Superman steps in and he just starts fighting Asmodale hand to hand, and he's doing so much better in the fight it's not even funny. And Superman's even able to stand up to Asmodale's searing light of truth. It's a cool Superman moment because he's just able to fight this angel hand to hand, no problem, no holds barred, no nothing. And it's pretty cool. But he doesn't have to do very good in the fight for very long, as Flash and Green Lantern make a giant tuning fork setup that turns speed into sound. So Flash starts running as the frequency becomes just right to match the hypersonic scream that had killed the angel earlier. All the angels dematerialize, except for Zuriel because he had previously accepted mortality. The League then offers Zuriel membership, but he says no. We then jump a few days later and back up to the moon, where we see that the League has decided to meet to inaugurate Green Arrow into the team, but instead they're attacked by the Key. We then jump to a synthesized reality, where we see Superman on Krypton, where he becomes a Green Lantern. We then jump to another false reality, where we see Aquaman on a flooded Earth, before we jump to another illusion, where we see Batman in a world where he passes on the mantle of Batman to Robin, and he marries Catwoman. We then jump back to reality, where we see Green Arrow, Connor Hockley, who, like I said earlier, is the son of Oliver Queen, as he is teleported to the Watchtower for his initiation tests. As Connor wanders the Watchtower, he eventually sees the room the JLA are being held in. So Connor tries to take down some of the robots who are programming the false realities for the Leaguers, which he's able to do, but we then cut to the Key, who was about to come running after Green Arrow personally. But before we see that, we jump into the simulated realities of each individual Leaguer again. And we see that there are some cracks forming in the simulations. They're starting to put together that things aren't quite right. Back with Green Arrow, we see him taking down the robots until the Key pulls up and shoots him in the back with a gun. With a laser cannon, not a gun. Which causes Connor to lose his quiver, and he has to run off to take care of the arm that was shot. Green Arrow is able to make it to the trophy room of the Watchtower, where he ties off his arm, tourniquet style, to stop the bleeding, and he steals his father's old trick arrows from a display case, and he goes off to fight the Key. We then cut to the Key, who is monologuing his plan to his robots. And his plan is basically to open a negative space doorway using his own mental energies, as well as the ones he's going to harvest from the League when they wake up and realize that they're living in false realities. We then jump into the minds of the Leaguers, where we see that their realities are starting to collapse into each other. Back in reality, we see that this is all going into the Key's plan, except for Green Arrow, who's fighting a robot in another part of the Watchtower, but he is massively struggling because of having to use the trick arrows. But eventually he gets the hang of it, and as the JLA starts realizing what's going on, the door to negative space is opening more and more. Eventually, Flash is able to physically escape the trap, and he finds Green Arrow, who is scrounging his arrows. So Flash tries to run in and stop the Key, but he ends up getting clipped by a blast from the Key. In the simulation, we see that the 5 other Leaguers have merged their realities, and they've also put together that they are in a simulation. And Batman, at the last minute, figures out that they need to not wake up. In the real world, just as the Key is about to enter negative space, Green Arrow takes him down with a boxing glove arrow. Then, to punctuate the issue, we see that Green Arrow has officially been indoctrinated into the League. And that's kind of where it all ends today. It's kind of an odd set of stories, a little disconnected, honestly. It took me 2 times reading through the 3 times maybe reading through the JLA story to realize that the guy in the hospital throughout the Angels and Demons story was the Key. There's just some weird A plus B doesn't always equal C connections through this JLA comic. But overall, man, do I like it. It really, I think this series, better than almost any of the others, captures the feeling of the Justice League. It really does just get it. You know what I mean? You have the 7 most powerful heroes, not necessarily most powerful, 7 most well-known superheroes in the DC universe on a team together, and it's just cool. That's all you really need. Something I do like about all of these issues is the new characters that they introduce you to are very interesting. The Tomorrow Woman being this kind of Red Tornado-esque tragic robot character, that I think that's a really interesting story idea, and I don't think they ever bring Tomorrow Woman back, but it was always an interesting idea. And throughout that story, something I didn't mention is that Professor Ivo and Professor Morrow are arguing about which one of them makes better androids, and Morrow literally builds consciousness into Tomorrow Woman. And that's kind of even though they lose the fight, Morrow's hey, but I made the better robot, and that's kind of just it's just an interesting story. It's just an interesting characterization. What I like about this series is it has such good characterization on all the characters, at least for now. I do think that eventually the JLA comic does start to struggle with that a little bit. But yeah. Zuriel is an interesting character. He's never one of my favorites whenever he shows up. He's just this weird character. Even throughout this story, which is his introduction to comics, we really don't get any sense of who he is, why he gave up being a guardian angel. We have no idea what's going on with him. He's just this weird character who shows up, gets defended by the League, and then dips. He does eventually come back to the League, though, so maybe that has something to do with it. Then you have my favorite of these 3, kind of new potential Leaguers, and that's Green Arrow 2. Connor Hawke's Green Arrow. Now, I just love Green Arrow. He's one of my favorite DC characters. He always has been, and he probably always will be. There's something about Connor Hawke being so different from Oliver Queen Green Arrow that just really works, especially knowing that he is the son of Oliver Queen. Now, Connor's kind of like if you combined Iron Fist and Hawkeye. He's from Marvel. He's this level-headed Buddhist monk guy but he's also the very much so. He's the battling bowman. Like, it's cool. I think Connor Hawke's an interesting character, and in this JLA story, having him having him be really the only character that's actually doing anything throughout the story, I think was a good call. It made him like super. Yeah, no, I just think that it was a really good. I really like that story with the key. Now, one thing that I don't always like about this comic is sometimes the art from Howard Porter just gets super choppy. Like, sometimes it's not very narrative, you know what I mean? Like, each panel is kind of cool, but sometimes you can't really tell what's going on. Sometimes you miss details. Like, that happens every now and then. I'm just like, wait. Okay, wait. What just happened? And overall, something that I really do appreciate about these stories is that they managed to capture kind of the Silver Age. It has like the Silver Age tone of the Justice League comic, but in a serious way. And I do really like that. Like, you've got these like high fantasy stories. Like, it's just cool. It's a cool comic, and the characterizations, like I said, are so on point. Having Superman be able to Superman in the middle story with the Angels, having him literally be able to pull the moon out of orbit, which, I'm sorry, if he wasn't Superman Blue, would have been so much cooler, because he probably would have just actually like tied the moon to his back, wore it like a backpack, and pulled it back into orbit, which would have been sick. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, it's pretty cool, even with him just like being an electromagnet basically. Then you have him come down to Earth, literally throw hands with an angel general, and he's winning the whole time basically. It's just a cool moment. Like, it's just a cool story. It's a good Superman moment. But yeah, overall, this JLA series from the 90s is, I think, probably overall the best Justice League comic. And it's hard. It's the one that feels most normal to me, because I grew up watching the Justice League TV show from the 2000s, which is very much so kind of based off of this comic. So that maybe that has something to do with it, but honestly, like, this just feels right. You got all the big names, you got all the, and since there's only 7 members, in every story there's at least like 5 or 6 of them. There's like 5 or 6 of the members, so that so far they haven't all been in any of the stories, which I think works. Saving, like, bringing out the full roster for the big stories does kind of work. But I mean, honestly, overall, that's like it's just a good series. Definitely worth the price tag that it usually comes with, because you can almost always find almost this entire series in the dollar bin at your local comic book store, which is weird because it's so much better than a lot of the other Justice League series. But yeah, I mean, overall, that's really just all I have on that one. Good, would recommend. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like I said, the only thing that I don't always love in this series, the artwork by Porter, just every now and then I'm just like, what is happening? Like this, every now and then the art uses their writing as a crutch hardcore, and it's kind of frustrating. But overall, that's not necessarily a problem with the comic, but it is something of an annoyance. But yeah, overall, I think that's all I've got on JLA for now. So yeah, I'm just another guy named James, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.